Good morning and welcome to Eurostat's webinar series. My name is Niamh O'Doherty and I'm an Information and Communication Officer at Eurostat, and I'm your moderator for today's webinar. Today, with Eurostat's experts, we'll give you more insights into Eurostat's website and database. In today's webinar, we will discover how to customize tables with the data browser, download, bookmark, and access metadata effortlessly. Further master your search and leverage your data with the API, citation support, and user guides. You'll be able to directly ask our experts questions after their presentations. Please send the questions to us via slido.com. The Slido code is 3013108. That's 3013108. You can see the link here on the screen and on the Eurostat stream page. On Slido, you'll also find a short survey to give us feedback on this webinar. Remember that this webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to access it later on the Eurostat website. Now, over to our experts. It's a pleasure for me to introduce our first speaker, Luca Salini, who is a statistical officer at Eurostat. Over to you, Luca.
Thank you, Niamh. Pleasure to be with you all today. The Eurostat website contains over 7,000 datasets, which include more than 1 billion data points in total. And there are many different ways through which you can access this extremely rich set of resources. When you first open the Eurostat website, everything you see can become a gateway to find the data you're looking for. And here are some examples. For starters, you could choose to explore the database directly by clicking on Database. Or perhaps you're interested in specific topics and prefer to browse the available information by statistical themes. If you prefer to see it all in one alphabetical list, the Stats Finder A to Z might become your entry point. Or maybe you prefer to read about statistical topics presented in an easily understandable way via Statistics Explained. Publications, data visualizations, or even news articles can equally become your entry point to access data published by Eurostat. And of course, how could I not mention our powerful search tools? In today's webinar, we've chosen to focus specifically on the Eurostat database, the search engine, and the data browser. In the next half an hour, we're going to show you how to find, navigate, customize, download, and cite Eurostat data. If you're interested in the other resources I just mentioned, you will find some of them, such as interactive publications or statistical literacy resources, covered in previous webinars, which are available as recordings from the Eurostat website. Let's then jump right in and take a first look at the Eurostat database. The database is organized in a data navigation tree structured around 4 main folders. These are detailed datasets, selected datasets, EU policies, and cross-cutting topics. Let's look at the first 2 more specifically, as this distinction will be important later. Detailed datasets are multidimensional. That is to say, they contain all data publicly available from Eurostat. For the purposes of the Eurostat database, you can also think about them as source datasets. On the other hand, selected datasets contain a selection of Eurostat data focusing on fewer indicators and variables. Typically, they contain 2 or 3 dimensions. Both detailed datasets and selected datasets are organized according to 9 statistical themes, which are the ones you see on the screen right now. These are broad, high-level thematic groupings, which are then broken down into more specific subfolders. The third folder I mentioned earlier presents datasets organized according to specific EU policies, such as Euro indicators or Sustainable Development indicators. Finally, cross-cutting topics offer a selection of statistical topics that are obtained from different data sources and collections. Some examples here are quality of life or climate change. When it comes to updates, data in the data navigation tree are updated twice a day at 11 a.m. and p.m. Central European Time. The icons that you see next to each subfolder or dataset give you access to the data browser, allow you to download the data in a compressed format, or to access the metadata. That is to say, explanatory texts and summary information about the statistical indicators or data collections. When you browse specific datasets, you may also encounter specific flags or symbols. These define a specific characteristics of the data, such as whether a specific data point is, for example, provisional, estimated, or not available, just to name a few. You can find a full description of these flags by clicking on Information on the database when you're looking at the data navigation tree. Despite this clear organization, you can imagine that finding just what you're looking for by browsing the data navigation tree can be a time-consuming exercise. After all, you might be looking for one specific dataset out of more than 7,000, quite the needle in a haystack. So let's consider other ways to efficiently discover datasets, and to do just that, I give the floor back to Neve.
Thank you, Luca. Now we'll hear from our second speaker, Laia Ginovart, who is a Senior Central User Support Assistant at Eurostat. Over to you, Laia.
Thank you, Neve. Hello, everyone. My name is Laia, and I'm part of Eurostat's user support team. I provide data and statistical information to international organizations, central banks, and colleagues from our network of national statistical institutes. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to use Eurostat's search engine and filters in a smart, efficient way so you can easily find the data you need within our very large database. So now I'll share my screen with you. When most people think about searching on Eurostat, they immediately think of datasets. And of course, datasets are at the core of what we provide. But one key thing to keep in mind is that our search engine indexes all Eurostat products, not just data tables. This includes new articles, podcasts, methodological documents, our glossary, statistics explained articles, and other publications. This means that the search engine is not only a tool for retrieving data, it is also an excellent way to find contextual and methodological information about the data you are working with. For example, suppose I am analyzing energy statistics and I want to understand precisely what is included under the category fossil fuel. Instead of searching in the Energy Statistics Manual, I can simply select the filter glossary, type fossil fuel, and immediately access a clear definition from Eurostat's official terminology. Now, when the goal is to find data, the first and most important step is to narrow down your results. To do that, you can select the filter Dataset, which limits your search exclusively to datasets and tables. You can also specify whether you want to see complete datasets or predefined tables. But the filters that usually make the biggest difference are the dimension filters. These allow you to restrict the results to datasets that include a specific breakdown. Once you have pre-filtered your results as needed, you can add specific keywords and the results would then still respect the filters you have applied. Let me give you a couple of concrete examples. If you are analyzing unemployment from a gender perspective, you can simply apply the sex filter. This limits the results to datasets that include a men and women breakdown, removing irrelevant items and speeding up your search. As you can see, we get all datasets relevant for this search. Another example. If your study focuses on youth unemployment in Europe, you can use the age filter. This restricts the results to datasets that contain age group variables. And we can even find all datasets containing the age class we want. As you will see, even if it is not specified in the title of the dataset, we can verify that this dimension is available by checking the gray labels in each result. If we are specifically looking for data on enlargement countries, we can use the dimension geopolitical entity reporting, which refers to the country or region that reports the data. It can also be the aggregate for the European Union or for the Euro area. As you know, Eurostat tables always include data for all EU member states. However, enlargement countries are not legally obliged to transmit their data to Eurostat. This means that you will not always find information for countries such as Albania or Montenegro in every data collection or dataset. To check this quickly, We can start by selecting this dimension and then choosing the country we are interested in, for example, Albania. After applying the filter, we can see that there are over 2,000 datasets that contain data for this country. Then we can also add the topic of our interest, for instance, data and transport. Finally, before wrapping up, I would like to mention one last option that is sometimes overlooked but can be very useful in our searches. I'm referring to this icon here showing data tree because by clicking on it, you can see exactly where the dataset is located in the navigation tree. And this allows you to explore other similar datasets that belong to the same data collection and that could interest us. For example, by clicking on this one on crude oil imports by field of production, we see that there are two other similar datasets on imports of oil and natural gas. By following these tips, you will make sure to find what you need in the Eurostat database. And now I hand over to my colleague Luca, who will introduce the features of the data browser.
Thanks to Laya's tips, we have now found just the right dataset we were looking for, and we have landed in Eurostat's data browser. Through the data browser, we can display, customize, download, and bookmark our data. But before we explore how to do all that, however, we need to start from the basics. Let's take a look at its user interface and ensure we understand how to use it. If you look at the user interface from top to bottom, you can see it as composed of three main blocks: an information block at the top of the page, a selection block in the middle, and a display block at the bottom. Let's look at them more closely. At the top of the page, you find the title of the dataset, its unique reference, and other dataset information, such as when it was last updated or which datasets are related to it. If you're looking at a derived dataset, as we're doing here, you will also find the source dataset as a hyperlink in the field source of data. Still in this part of the page, you can explore a dataset's position in the data navigation tree by clicking on dataset information on the right-hand side and then show in data tree. Finally, this block also gives you access to the metadata. This provides the background information needed to fully understand and accurately interpret the data published by Eurostat. They describe statistical concepts and methodologies used for the collection and generation of data, provide information on data quality, and can also help you understand the frequency with which data are disseminated. So whether you can expect to find new data every month or every year, for example. National metadata, if available, can also be found here, as in this other example that I'm showing you. If we now move down to the middle of the page, using this other dataset as an example, we can see which dimensions and positions, or if you prefer, which variables and values we are looking at right now. This same part of the page also allows us to customize the view to fit our needs. We will explain how to do that in a few minutes, but before we get into that, let's take a closer look at how dimensions are displayed here. In addition to the dimensions you see at the top, a few of them appear with a smaller font on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side. Those on the left, as time frequency or unit of measure, in this example, are fixed and cannot be customized, at least in this table. So if you're looking for monthly data, for example, this would not be the right table for you. Those on the right, as labor force and employment status or sex in this example, can be customized, but they only have one active position or value at the moment. So if you're looking for data specifically on employees or on women, you will find it by customizing this dimension. Dimension displayed in black on the right-hand side of this block move up or down depending on whether you have one or more positions active. You can see here that dimension age class already has several active positions, actually 12 out of 12 values, and that is why it is currently displayed here and not below together with sex. We can also see that dimension geopolitical entity reporting has all its positions being displayed, whereas dimension time only shows the latest 10 by default. One more thing, under rows and columns, you see an empty space where you can drag and drop dimensions. That means you can have more than one dimension displayed in the rows and or in the columns. Finally, the bottom of the page is where the data is displayed, be it in the default view or after you have applied your customizations. Within the data browser, you can display data in 4 different formats: table, line chart, bar chart, or map. For each of these formats, a contextual help section is available, illustrating each and every feature that is available via the action buttons on the right of the page. This part of the page is also where you can share, bookmark, or download data after you have applied your customizations. Any applicable flags are also displayed below the table, as you can see here. Now that we've covered the basics, I will hand the floor back to Laia, who will show us how to customize tables.
Thank you, Luca. Next, I would like to show you how you can use the data browser to customize tables according to your needs. As you know, most datasets contain more than one dimension apart from the geographical entity and the period. As Luca explained, predefined tables contain a limited number of dimensions, but complete datasets offer many more possibilities. Let's start with a simple example using a dataset on energy. We will use supply and transformation of solid fossil fuels for monthly data. Very often, users who are not familiar with our database find a table that interests them, but they need a longer time series. To check whether all their data exist and display them on a screen, you only need to look at this small number here. This means that only 10 periods out of 212 are selected. Then you can open the menu by clicking on Customize your dataset, and a pop-up window will appear. And you can add more years, months, or quarters in the time dimension. When there are a lot of periods available, it can be useful to use these filters. By selecting Always All Positions, we select everything. If I click on Static Positions, the dataset will only include the selected positions. By using Relative Position, my table will only show the last X positions available. I can also select a time range. By default, we see from January 2008 until now. And after clicking on Save and go to Data View, the table will update accordingly. Sometimes you will work with a table containing many breakdowns, but you are only interested in the European aggregate or a single country. In that case, it can be useful to remove the countries you don't need from the geo dimension and keep only the one you are analyzing. Since it is possible to place up to 2 dimensions per axis, you can reorganize the table to display all the information you need at a glance. For example, let's look for Belgium's imports and exports of solid fuels. And let's say I want the breakdown for each available product. I open again my selection menu and I select one by one the items I need for each dimension. In the energy balance, I will unselect all and only select imports and exports. In the reporting country, I will check only data for Belgium. For the product, I will select them all. We only have 5. For the time, I will only check the most recent data available. Therefore, I will ask for the last 10 months. Finally, I won't need to modify anything under the time frequency because this is just a monthly dataset and there is only one unit of measure. I click Save to apply my changes and I get the following view. This view makes it difficult to check my data since I have to constantly use the drop-down menus to switch between imports, exports, and each product's information. Instead, I can remove the geo from the row and move there the products. I only need to drag and drop the dimensions. Also, I can add the imports and exports in the column so I will be able to display everything on the screen. Again, I click on here and I move the dimension. Now, because we still don't have data for the summer, I can remove those months from my view. Then, because data are only available for 2 out of the 5 products, I can sort the table in descending order to display the largest values first. Another option we can explore to customize the view is to swap the axis of the dimensions by clicking this icon here in the corner. This will replace the months and import-export in the rows and the products in the columns. In addition, if we are analyzing trends, it may be useful to switch to a line chart. By clicking on the first tab here, we can visualize the evolution of the selected export products over time, and it makes it easier to identify patterns. And it is possible to add more products by clicking on highlight. Depending on the type of data, we may also prefer to use a bar chart or even create a map to compare European countries. We have these options also here. And finally, please note that all 3 visualization types, line chart, bar chart, and map, can also be downloaded as PDF or PNG files. I hope you have discovered something useful today, and now Luca will explain how to download and save the selected data.
Thank you, Laia. Now that you're familiar with selecting exactly the data you need and displaying it exactly the way you want, it is time to discover how to download it. For example, to carry out some calculations, share it, or bookmark it to be able to return to it at a later time. The Eurostat website offers different ways to download data. Firstly, via the data navigation tree. Secondly, via the data browser. Thirdly, automatically by means of the API, the application programming interface. And finally, via the bulk download section. We have already mentioned the first option, so let's focus specifically on the second and the third, and Laia will then talk about the bulk download in the next section. When we click on the download button in the data browser, a dialog allows us to specify whether we want to download only the data that is displayed on our screen, only the displayed dimensions, all the data that we have selected, that is to say, all the active positions, including those that are not currently displayed, and that is called all selected dimensions, or the full dataset. We're also able to choose between different file formats, from a simple spreadsheet all the way to an XML or JSON file. Note that different options will be available to you depending on which file format you choose. For the spreadsheet format, you can specify how the file to be downloaded will be structured. Let's take a closer look at the content of a downloaded spreadsheet. By default, your spreadsheet will contain a summary sheet with information about the dataset and links back to the Eurostat website and to the data browser. If you move to the following sheets, in addition to the data itself, you will also find the timestamp of when the data was extracted from the Eurostat database. In this example, flags are displayed together with the data, which is the default setting. However, before downloading, you can also specify that you want flags to be displayed in a separate sheet. For all file formats other than Excel spreadsheet, in addition to downloading the file, you can copy the API link, which you can enter into your application of choice, allowing you to query directly the Eurostat database to get programmatic access to statistical data and metadata. For more information on the API, you can consult our extensive user guide, which includes rich documentation and frequently asked questions to help you troubleshoot. In addition to downloading the data, in many situations, you will want to share it with someone else, refer to it in a document, or store it to come back to it in the future. Here too, the data browser comes to your rescue. If you click on the Share Bookmark button, you have access to an easy way to share your dataset, displayed exactly the way you customized it via social media or email. In addition, you can copy the dataset URL or even copy a user-friendly link which contains the title of the dataset and its online data code, all this without losing your customizations. Finally, if you decide to log into the Eurostat website with your EU login account, you will be able to save your bookmark in your account and give it a customized name so that you can easily identify it. Now that we're familiar with these features, I will give the floor back to Laia for a few additional tips to conclude this overview.
To conclude this overview, I would also like to show you a very useful option for anyone who needs to download large amounts of data or even the entire Eurobase. This is the bulk download tool. This is a very powerful feature, so let me give you a quick overview of how it works. The information in the bulk download tool is updated twice a day as well. Datasets are available in tab-separated values and SDMX formats. And you can also access the code list used in the datasets as well as the reference metadata. As you can see here, the first tab gives you access to all Europe-based datasets listed in alphabetical order. Only datasets from the international trade domain and industrial production are available in a separate part under the COMEX Files tab. For all other domains, you can search and select the datasets you need directly from this interface. As you see, you can search alphabetically or use the filter. For example, if we want to find the dataset that contains the death rate, we can type the term in this field. And 15 datasets containing this indicator will appear. We can then select the dataset we are interested in and then use the links available for downloading it in one of the three available formats. If instead we want to explore the data from several datasets, for example these 15 datasets, we don't need to download them one by one. We can speed up the process by selecting all of them, choosing bulk action, selecting the preferred format, clicking apply, and then start. It is also important to know that the second tab provides access to the code lists, which are the unique concepts and codes used across dataset dimensions in different statistical domains. For instance, if we want to know the meaning of accident, we simply click on View Code List Details and we will see the definition of the concept as well as the list of items it includes. If needed, we can download the list in either TSV or SDMX format. And since there is no data without metadata, we can also download all metadata directly from this page. We can download the full folder containing metadata and annexes or open the metadata webpage directly. We can search metadata alphabetically by entering the dataset code, if we know it, or by typing part of the title. For instance, if I type import, I'll get metadata for datasets from energy domain or short-term business statistics, STS data collections. For some data collections, country-specific metadata is also available, and in those cases, we can filter by country. Finally, if we need to download COMEX or Prodcom data, we should go to the fourth tab. Here, we find 4 directories plus instructions on how to use the files. COMEX files are in the first folder, historical data in the second, metadata in the third, and Prodcom data is available under the Europroms folder inside the fourth. Since we don't have time to go into detail today, I encourage anyone interested in using COMEX files to read the detailed instructions provided to ensure the files are used correctly. And before concluding my presentation, I would like to remind you that in general terms, Eurostat's data reuse policy allows our data to be reused for both commercial and non-commercial purposes, as long as the source is acknowledged. However, there are some exceptions you should be aware of, and it is also important to cite the data correctly. Therefore, we encourage you to consult our copyright notice. This notice is available under the Help section. You go here, Copyright Notice, and you will see it provides clear guidelines on how to cite datasets, publications, and other Eurostat products. Broadly speaking, the key principles are: mention the source as Eurostat, you need to mention which specific dataset you are using, you need to mention the access date for easily reproduce the extraction, and mention any modifications you make for transparency. So that brings me to the end of today's presentation. I hope you found it useful, and I am available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you both for your expert insights. The two presentations have given us plenty of information about Eurostat's website and data browser, and I'm sure we're all eager to put these tips and tricks into practice. As part of the question and answer session, Laia and Luca will take the stage. But first, let me invite you, our viewers, to ask questions. Remember that you can ask us questions via slido.com. The code is 3013108. That's 3013108. If we don't manage to answer all of your questions now, we'll follow up and send you answers via slido.com. Now, our first question: what's the difference between the different aggregates available for the same entity? For example, EU or Euro area. Luca, this is a question for you.
Thank you, Neil. So on the Eurostat website, you will find, roughly speaking, different types of aggregates. You will find aggregates which are evolving and aggregates which are fixed. For the first type, basically this kind of aggregate, which is usually the ones with a simpler label, for example, EU or EA for Euro area, they track the membership of this entity over time. So you will only want to use it in specific cases when you are not interested in what the membership was at a specific point in time. You're only interested in tracking that entity. The other type, the fixed aggregate, they take into account the membership of the entity. And one example of that is the current aggregate for the EU, which is EU27 2020. So that means the 27 member states of the EU as of 2020. And one thing to pay attention to is that the 2020 doesn't necessarily mean that you will only find data for that reference period in this aggregate, because, for example, when from EU28 we became EU27, we recalculated past data. So in many cases, you will find a longer time series under that aggregate. So these are the different types of aggregates. And then, of course, you will find specific aggregates for each point in time based on the membership at that specific point. So I hope that this answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Luca. Our second question is for Laia. If I don't open the dataset, can't I know how many specific dataset covers there are? And why do I sometimes see that a dataset has been updated, but I don't see any new data?
Okay. Thank you, Neve. Yeah, I can answer that. So actually, you can check the information by clicking on the small blue circle with an I, which stands for dataset information. So there you will see a section called data coverage, and this icon is available both in the navigation tree next to each dataset and inside the dataset itself. So by clicking on it, you can see the oldest and the newest data available for that dataset. So you don't really need to open a dataset to verify the years that are covered. And the second question, yeah, this is a good one because there is a difference between new data being released and the last update date. Because each dataset follows a specific methodology. So the release of new data depends on the data collection process, the data validation, and the release policy for that dataset. So it's important to remember that the date on which member states must deliver their data is not the same as the publication date, because a data validation process always takes place before publication. So to know when a specific dataset will be updated, you should check the metadata file attached to each table, so this icon, metadata, and look at point 8, release policy. Sometimes you may see that a dataset has been updated, even though no new data has been added. This happens when the dataset is updated due to a revision or when flags have been changed or removed. So in such cases, the dataset still appears as updated, even if no new values were introduced. I hope this is clear.
Thank you, Laia. Now, our third question is for Luca. Where do you go to apply the filters on the database?
So if you want to filter manually, the best thing to do, what I would recommend, is to do so from the search results page. And I can also give you an extra tip here. You can also run an empty search. And in that case, your search results will include everything that is there on the Eurostat website, database, and all the different product types. And from there, you can start filtering depending on what you're interested in. So this gives you the most flexibility. It's a tip that I also use sometimes when I want to find a specific resource and I'm not sure in which part of the Eurostat website I will find it. So first you can set up your filters and then you can run a search while keeping the filters you have selected stable, active. So they will remain even after you run the search. An alternative way, perhaps that could be helpful in some cases, is to use the statistical themes. And in this case, you could go to a specific statistical theme section. And then in each section, you will find a subset of the data navigation tree. So just the part of the database that is relevant for that theme. And you will find it there in that specific thematic section. And it would be easier to see only the data sets, a more limited number of data sets in that context. Thank you.
Thank you, Luca. Now, question 4 is about interdependency of indicators. For example, prices of electric energy, inflation, consumption, low VAT revenues, bankruptcy rate, unemployment rate, and recession. Can we select multiple indicators and get reports with correlation analysis? Laya, I think this is a question for you.
Okay, so this is a very good question actually, because the Eurostat website does not allow to mix and match indicators from different data sets. And as a data user, you should only do it carefully and ensuring you take into account any methodological differences. So yeah, it's very important to check the metadata attached to each table and to check everything before doing your own analysis, even if the different tables used belong to the same domain. If they don't belong to the same data collection, it can be tricky.
Thank you, Laya. Now, our next question is from a viewer who says they really enjoyed the presentation, and their question is, can customized table views be shared directly with colleagues? And if so, what is the simplest method? Luca, this is for you.
Yes, so the best thing is to customize your table first and do that by clicking on customize your dataset. And once you save, you will notice that the page will reload, so the URL will change. After doing that, you can click on share bookmark, and then you can choose either option. So either copy the dataset URL, or perhaps more user-friendly, copy the dataset name as link. And in that way, the link that you will share with your colleague will contain the customizations you have applied and will be stable, and you will be able to reuse it in the future. So that's the simplest way. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Luca. So, next question. If only aggregated data is available, for example, labor force by citizenship in the EU, but citizenship only appears as a group of country, can I do a request for disaggregated data? Laya, this is a question for you.
Yeah. Okay, this is an interesting one as well, because actually it is possible to request some ad hoc extractions from the labor force survey. But the team needs to analyze the request to make sure that they are not disclosing microdata. So actually that needs to be checked by the experts. So if you are interested in getting more detailed data, you have two options. Either you apply, if you are a researcher, you can apply for microdata access, and there is a whole section on the website, and you will find all the information. Or you can write to the user support and request that, and then we will check with the team if this is possible. But normally, everything that can be released is already online. So normally it is not possible to get more detailed data because Eurostat makes everything available online normally. Only microdata for researchers could be maybe more detailed than what is already available online.
Thank you, Laia. Now we have a question. What does it mean when data points are placed with a colon or contain certain letters next to the value? And can I have the flags displayed separately from the data points? Luca, this is a question for you.
Yes, so I briefly mentioned this earlier. These flags are codes that are added to the data and they define a specific characteristic. And broadly speaking, you can find two types. You find the types that are with a lowercase letter, and those relate to the observation status. And the other type is the uppercase letter, and that relates to the confidentiality status. To find the meaning of each flag, you can either look below a table and you will always find the explanation of the flags which are used in that specific table, or you can browse a full list and you can find the full list by clicking on information on the database when you're looking at the whole database, what I was showing at the start. And specifically regarding the question on the colon, a colon is a special value and it means data not available. So it replaces the actual value for that case. Thank you.
Thank you, Luca. Now, question number 8. It's how can I verify the update frequency of a data set? For example, to know whether it's updated monthly or annually. And how do I know when the next data release is planned? Laia, this is a question for you.
Oh, yeah. In many cases, the frequency is shown directly in the dataset title. So, for example, if you check short-term business statistics, you can immediately see whether the dataset contains annual, quarterly, or monthly data. The same for labor force or other data collections. But if not, you can also find this information in the metadata file under point 9, frequency of dissemination. So you will see it. Also, when this is not obvious at first glance, the code in the title can give you a hint. So if it ends with an A, this is for annual, and if you find a Q, this is for quarterly data. I hope this explains.
Thank you, Laia. Now we have question number 9. Are there any limits to how many alerts, datasets, or bookmarks I can set up or save? Luca, it's a question for you.
Thank you. The only limit applies to email alerts. And in this case, you can only set up to 10 alerts. For more flexibility, you could set up alerts using RSS feeds, either using an RSS feed reader or even your email client. And the same way, there are no limits to the amount of data sets or bookmarks that you can add to your account. So once you have logged into the Eurostat website with an EU login account, then you can save all these things in your account without any limit whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you, Luca. And now I think we have time for 2 more questions. One for you, Laia. If I can't find or don't understand something, is there a direct way to contact the Eurostat help desk for clarification on a specific dataset?
Oh, yeah, of course, of course. You can contact us using the form available under the Contact Us tab. You will see that there are 3 different support options. So the first one is for the general public. You just need to select your language and fill in the short form. If your question is very basic, maybe you can also call us. But normally we need to receive all the information like it is nice to receive the bookmark. You explain us if you need data verification or it's about methodological requests. So we will see if we can answer the user directly or if we need to send this to the experts. Then, if you are a journalist, you should contact the dedicated media support. And if you are a colleague working for an EU institution, then you should reach out to the institutional support team. And all the details, you will find them in our website. When you are using the dataset and you want to contact us, then this option is available under the tab Info, and then you click Contact and Feedback.
Thank you, Laia. Now, our last question. Is it possible to see what was updated in the database, which data, flags, and etc.? Is there any overview of these updates? Luca, this is for you.
So because of the two aspects I mentioned at the start, because we publish so many data sets, more than 7,000, and because we update the database every day, unfortunately, it is not feasible for us to provide this kind of overview of changes. It would be a daily endeavor. So we have to overwrite old data with new data, and therefore you will be notified, for example, if you've set up an alert when new data is published. However, we are not in a position to provide an overview of these updates, unfortunately.
Thank you, Luca. And with that, we wrap up our webinar on Eurostat's website and database. Thank you to our speakers, Laia and Luca, and to you, our viewers, for joining us and sending your questions. Please remember to participate in our feedback survey via Slido. There you can also find the address to contact our multilingual user support if you have any further questions. For now, from Eurostat in Luxembourg, I'm Nivo Doherty, wishing you happy browsing.